numbers, no emotion. Where do our young players really sit? Next on Locked on Jazz.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
How are you? I am David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps and on YouTube and on Amazon Fire TV. Thanks so much for tuning in. All right, on today's show, we are going to use the website Dunks and Threes by Taylor Snar. It's a paid website, so you're going to go behind a paywall. We are going to analyze where our young players are without any emotion. We'll go and figure out whether we should be concerned, whether they're making progress, where they're making progress, and understand where they rank as players. There is some, let me say this, as I did this and prepared this last night, there is some feeling on my part that I wish I had more historical data of being able to go back and comp other players that were at similar points to try to see what it means. Because honestly, some of these numbers aren't great. And so it's not clear to me on how concerned we should really be when you look at some of the numbers and what they say and whether other players in the history of the game have ever rebounded from being in the first percentile of a category or being one of the 5 worst offensive players in the league or being one of the 5 worst defensive players in the league, or whether at what point does someone have to move in the right direction. So in fairness to what we're about to do, some of this is alarming, but I don't have historical context of how alarming it truly is. So let's not overreact to some of the things you're about to see. On those of you on YouTube, I will try to show you the graphs the whole time. There's a lot of numbers that we're going to use here. The most important number that we're going to use throughout this program that I want you to know is called EPM. It's estimated plus minus. Taylor Snar, who used to work and may still do some work for the Utah Jazz, is the one who has created Dunks and Three. He's a local guy. I was going to call him a kid because that's what he was at one point. He's not now. He's probably an adult parent of multiple. Super cool. Dad was a great guy, or is a great guy. Estimated plus minus is the estimated player impact and skill per 100 possessions on this given date. So it includes data of the player's entire preceding career leading up to today. Weighs recent performance for each stat. And it is deep and breaks and is really generally thought of as some of the best numbers you can find. There's also, we can do actual numbers and the rest. And is one of the more forward-thinking numbers. So if we just give you the basic one, on estimated plus minus, the best offensive players in the NBA right now, according to this, are Nikola Jokic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Steph Curry, Tyrese Halliburton, Luka Doncic, Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson, Kyrie Irving, Giannis, Jason Tatum. Lines up pretty well, right? Like, let's do the eyeball test of the number we're about to use to evaluate our young players and see how it feels. The best defensive players: Alex Caruso, Asur Thompson, Detroit, Victor Wembanyama, Chet Holmgren, Draymond Green, Chris Dunn, Evan Mobley, Rudy Gobert, Ivica Zubac, which is interesting, Jalen Suggs, Amon Thompson. Okay, right? Like, if those are the important numbers we're going to use, it lines up. Here's a nice, interesting number. They have an assist rate, which is predicted assists per 100 possessions. Jokic, Trae Young, Tyrese Haliburton, and the rookie of the month, Isaiah Collier. Okay, so there's kind of a fun note for you. Now, the site does a bunch of really interesting things. And one of the things it'll allow me to do is compare one player to another to see what the progression of their career is. So we're going to put in Keonte George, Isaiah Collier, Cody Williams. We'll include Walker Kessler for a minute. We'll drop him out of Bryce Sensabaugh, Kyle Filipowski, all very early into their careers, and we'll look at them all together here. And we will look at Walker, though Walker is progressing beautifully. So let me do the first screen share of the day on this for you. And again, this is geeky stuff. We are getting pretty numbers heavy today. Sometimes hard to follow, but hopefully I'll do it in a manner. I listened to a whole podcast, my favorite podcast by Matt Abramson out of Stanford, which is all about communication of how you have to do data and give it context. And I'm about to not have enough context, but we'll still do the best we can here for you. So let me share this window with you, and we will see how it looks. All right. It is the whole window. Okay, great. And I'm off to the side. Here are the Jazz 5 young players by estimated plus minus. And this, you can see what's interesting to watch in the graph here is it shows their progressions, and we'll break down each of them individually. And you can organize it by career game or by age or by season. So let's start with career game. And for those of you that are watching on video, you see the 2 lines that go the furthest out there, Keyonte George and their Bryce Sensabaugh. What's very encouraging here, what's discouraging here is the numbers on the left, unestimated plus minus, are all negative. Okay, so that's what's discouraging. But most rookies are. And we'll dig into that in a minute on each of these players individually. But here's the overall trend of the 5, which I think is interesting. So Keonte and Bryce Sensabaugh both obviously have played now about 140 games of their NBA career. And what's interesting, if you're watching this, it has a U to it. Both Sensabaugh and Keonte go way down at about game 90 of their NBA career, and both have worked their way up into better position, trending in the right direction, and now have plateaued a bit. Sensabaugh's been a notch behind Keonte on the graph the whole time, but it's interesting to see that their trend is almost the exact same. If we flip over to the younger players for a second, Kyle Filipowski had the best run of anyone. He is on a consistent downward trajectory right now. Okay, doesn't feel like it watching him. While simultaneously, Isaiah Collier, who went super low at the 31st game, is on a solid upward trajectory that has now plateaued a little bit. And Cody Williams, by game 42, had really plummeted to the bottom of all rankings and is now progressively, slowly working his way back up. Okay? So that's the overall trend. The 5, it's interesting to see where they are in their careers. For those of you that are watching on the screen, if you do it by age, what gets interesting here is that Filipowski is actually the exact same age at this point of Keonte George and Bryce Sensabaugh, and Cody Williams and Isaiah Collier are still much further back, and Filipowski is at about the exact same point right now, dead in the middle of Keonte George and Bryce Sensabaugh in his progression. They're at 21.3 years old. They're all kind of at the exact same. Those 3 are all developing right at the exact same spot. Collier's similar to that spot at 20.4, and Cody's pretty far behind that. So there's the first part of this. Now, the next part of this is we go player by player, and look at their progressions. And some of this is exciting, and some of this feels a bit disconcerting. A pure numbers, no emotion, analytical look at our young players today on Locked On Jazz. The Wednesday edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you by Intercap Lending. Steve Carter is our own personal loan officer, and Steve Carter does just amazing work. Brock Worthen is the president over there. I've known Steve and Brock now for about 6-7 years. You know, we only have 2 local sponsors at the point, and that is because if you're going to be a part of Locked On Jazz as a sponsor, I want to make sure it's a company I really believe in, and 2, I want to make sure you're going to be around for a while. We don't like to try to have people pop in and do local ads with us. And that's why both Intercap and Murdoch have been with us for 7+ years now. Steve Carter is incredible. I really cannot give you, I think that's right, 7 years, kind of estimated. But in COVID, you just take everything you think and add by 2 because you don't know those. Steve Carter gives the best customer service of anyone, and that's why it's so great for me to tell you about Intercap. Intercap Lending is about simplifying the journey to home ownership. If you're ready to make the move, and even if you're just starting to explore, give them a look and have Steve Carter help you out. He is on top of everything, will give you confidence, will make you feel like you're being taken care of. It's absolutely remarkable. Carlos said Steve Carter's the best, always on top of it, gets back to you after hours if needed. One of the best companies and persons I've dealt with in many years. Thank you to Steve. Paul said Steve was amazing. We moved out of state, handled everything with ease. I couldn't have gone any better. Communication was a priority, helping ease our anxiety. Just email me at dlock09@gmail.com. That's dlock09@gmail.com, and I'll set you up with a personal meeting with the great Steve Carter, our own personal loan officer at Intercap. If you don't want me involved, you can call Steve at 385-800-8528. That's 385-800-8528. And you can keep me out of the picture as you want. Today's show is also brought to you by Open Phone. You've probably heard me do open phone ads in the past. They all kind of hurt my heart a little bit because I only wish we knew about Open Phone when we were building Locked On. We didn't, and it was fine, but I didn't use it. Let's just say I wish I did. Because when you're running a small business, it means you're wearing lots of hats, and your personal phone number becomes your business phone. And before you know it, you're juggling customer calls all day and night. As your team grows, it becomes impossible to manage everything with just your personal number, and that's where Open Phone comes in. It's the #1 business phone system designed to help keep your work and personal life separate. For just $15 a month, the cost of a few coffees, you get complete transparency, visibility into everything with your business phone number. Open Phone works through an app on your phone or computer and integrates with tools such as HubSpot, hundreds of others. It also has powered AI call transcriptions and summaries, so you'll have a rundown of your call actions the second you hang up. If you miss a call, no problem. Automated messages are sent directly to your customer, ensuring you'll never miss an opportunity to engage. Right now, Open Phone is offering 20% off your first 6 months when you go to openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's openphone.com/LockedOnNBA for 20% off your first 6 months. Openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. If you're having existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. That's openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. Thank you for joining me for a geeky edition. The newsletter is available for you at LockedOnDaily.com. Go to sign up, hit Utah Jazz, and you're in business. All right, let us start and take a quick look at Walker Kessler, the best story of the year. He's been absolutely terrific. He's a great reminder on this exercise for us not to panic and for us to look at players and realize that they are still merging and developing. So here's Walker. Walker Kessler starts the career kind of minus 1.5 where they all are. He goes up to an estimated plus-minus impact of plus 1.8, which is incredible. He then slides back down, and at this point last year, in March of last year, he was on a low trajectory. And if we looked at his estimated plus-minus a year ago, we would be like, ah! He flattens, and now he's risen back up, and he is on pace. They project him to get back up to about 0.9. It's actually not as high as his peak was in 22-23 season, in the 23 season, but it's upward. So let's remember this trajectory right here because, frankly, when you look at this with Walker, it's really, really encouraging. He's been great. It also is a reminder that, like, our guys can evolve. Walker, offensive estimated plus minus in his career was in the 86th percentile his first year, 50th percentile his second year, and 73rd percentile this year. His defensive numbers were in the 88th percentile his first year, the 60th percentile last year, and the 85th percentile this year. So his defense still off a little bit from where it was his rookie year, which is interesting. His offensive rebounding is not any different. Literally, what this would tell you is that some of the offensive rebounding numbers that Walker has is because he's just playing more. He went from 97th percentile to 94th percentile to 97th percentile. So he leads the league in offensive rebounding, but frankly, that is because of time on the floor. So that's interesting. That was a little surprising to me on that. All right, let's take a look at I want to see if there's anything else. There are actual shooting skills here, but with Walker, that's really not that important. His shooting map is pretty clear of what it is, and he's not taking much more than that. So there's probably no need to look at that. It's a pretty incredible site. It is paid site. That was all of his expected. So at 23, Walker progressing, and he's been the highlight of the season. Let's take a look at Keonte George. So 21 years, 3 months, 27 days old at this point. And here's Keonte, and some of this is really encouraging. Here's Keonte's start of his career, and it's low, and he worked it way up last year. And then when everyone got pulled last year in the second half of this season, I've said this a lot of time, I just want to forget all of those things. He plummets at the end of the year last year. At this point last year, on March 5th, Keonte's sitting up with seemingly like having a decent trend of where things are going. And plummets down, and then if we watch his progression, it starts up nicely this year, plummets again into its lowest point yet at November 26th, and then he gets moved to the bench, and he has since been nicely on an upward trajectory of progress until the last few days, starting about the middle of February, and he's now trending down again pretty sharply, frankly, on a game-by-game basis. And it will be the projection of him is to be pretty flat the rest of the way. As a negative player, will be interested to see whether Keonte can turn this trend at all. And this is where I don't have enough data. I need to go find out is if you end your sophomore year with an estimated plus minus of minus 2.4 after being minus 3 the year before, what is your career chances? That's kind of a weird number, right? We don't really know what minus 2 and minus 3 means. It means he's in the 35th percentile of all players of estimated plus minus. So there's 65% of the players in the league are better. Offensively, Keonte's made a massively awesome jump this year. And I think this is super important. Keonte's usage rate is the exact same as it was a year ago. And he's gone from the 41st to the 76th percentile offensively. That is a great step forward. From the 41st percentage to the 76th percentile. But here's the ugly truth. Keonte George was in the 3rd percentile defensively last year, and he's in the 1st percentile defensively this year. So let me take a look at this and show you what I mean. The worst defensive player in the entire NBA, according to estimated plus minus, is Corey Kispert of the Washington Wizards, who we will see tonight. And the second worst is Keonte George. And the third worst is Doug McDermott. And the fourth worst is Dalton Knecht. And then Bryce Sensabaugh. And then Bojan Bogdanovic. And then Nick Smith and Julian Strawther. Most of these are young players, so it kind of makes some sense. But of the players that are minus 2 or worse, there's only 6 of them in the NBA. Corey Kispert, Keonte George, Doug McDermott, Dalton Knecht, Bryce Sensabaugh, and Bojan Bogdanovic, who has played like 2 minutes all year. So that is where Keonte, and on the right-hand side of the screen, you can actually see the scale of where it is. Corey Kispert and Keonte George are, and Doug McDermott are considerably worse than the rest of the bad defensive players. That's why Keonte's not starting. And that is what is going to determine what Keonte George, frankly, becomes in his career. Let's take a look at Bryce Sensabaugh. Bryce Sensabaugh has this kind of even, again, very minus. We're -2. Like it's even, and he dips at the end of last year, gets going. He didn't play a lot, right? Has a bad bottom spike this year on October 23rd and has worked his way nicely back up. Still not to a great spot in the estimated plus-minus, but you can see that Bryce Sensabaugh's career on estimated plus-minus on this graph is heading from the nadir of -5 when he starts playing last year and working his way back up into, it's still not great, -2. Overall, right now, his -2.9, the exact same as last year, is in the 21st percentile of all players. Offensively, Bryce is about the exact same as he was last year. He was in the 60th percentile last year. He's in the 58th percentile this year. And his defense, as we just talked about, is in the 1st percentile. He's taking a few more of his shots as threes. He's going to the free throw line less than he did a year ago, despite being a 90% free throw shooter. He's rebounding a little less than he did a year ago. And to put some context into estimated plus-minus of -2.9, which is where he was, we run this list down to give you kind of an idea of who those players are that are at a similar level. Keonte, I think, was a -2.3. I'll look at it again. But the players that are -2.9 on estimated plus-minus, KJ Simpson, Markieff Morris, Vlado Konkar, Bryce Sensabaugh, Jordan Miller, Tyrese Martin, Daquan Jeffries, Charles Bassey, Kaylor Kelly, Antonio Reeves, Jalen Martin. You got it. Yeah, there's a few others here at 2.9. Christian Coloco, PJ Dozier, Kayvon Harris. Not household names. Again, I'll look into this, but the piece of information I'm lacking is the piece of information that tells me what has happened in years past to players that are 2.9 and below. All right, we'll look at the 3 rookies quickly. They're very short in this process. Next, as we continue here on Locked On Jazz. Some of these numbers might make you want to talk to our next sponsor. Convenient, flexible online therapy. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. I've always said when talking about BetterHelp that therapy is performance enhancement. So who is in your support system? We all need people to lean on, whether it's friends, family, mentors, or professionals. Even the strongest leaders, athletes, knowing that asking for help makes them better. Therapy is one of the best ways to build a strong support system. It's not just for tough times. It's help setting boundaries, developing coping skills, becoming the best version of yourself. Learning to ask for help. You can see firsthand how that support helps. Everyday benefits. Not about crisis moments. It's about self-improvement, stress management, navigating life challenges. And BetterHelp is fully online, making it easier than ever to connect with a licensed therapist from anywhere. With over 30,000 professionals available, you can find the right fit and switch anytime at no extra cost. So build your support system, your performance enhancement crew with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. That's BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day, the Geek Edition today. Let's hope this is actually interesting. Let's take a look at Jazz rookie Isaiah Collier as our next one. Pure numbers, no emotion day, using Taylor Snar's dunks and threes. Estimated plus-minus. And here's Isaiah Collier's chart. Again, like everybody else, seems to start like -3. Works him down to a nadir by December 30th. which is interesting because this is actually where he gets to start and play more, and he works his way up, and he's now kind of back at negative 2.8. So he's not great, but you can see a nice trajectory here by Isaiah Collier. And now it's plateaued a little bit. So this will be interesting to see. They're projecting him to be on a little bit of an upward rise, but nothing mammoth between now and the end of the season. He ranks in the 42nd percentile offensively. He ranks in the 8th percentile defensively. He's in the 19th percentile overall at a -3 estimated plus minus. So his -3 is actually lower than Bryce Sensabaugh. His true shooting has him in the 4th percentile of all players. Okay, that's a big issue there. His three-point shooting is in the 7th percentile. Free throw shooting is in the 12th percentile. His two-point shooting is in the 26th percentile. His turnover rate is the highest of any player in the NBA, and his assist rate is in the 99th percentile. So, nice trajectory. If we look at his shooting, which is probably one of the big things for him, league average true shooting percentages is sitting at about 57%, and he's at 47%. So he does have a nice thing. It is not heading, feels like he's shooting better. The data says no. The data says he's actually beginning to slip a little bit down the other direction. So again, Collier, lots of progress. Rookie of the month, pretty great. We're seeing a lot of exciting things out of him. Some of the shooting numbers are really considerable. Let's take a look at Kyle Filipowski. Kyle Filipowski, it feels to me, is like trending way up, and these numbers say kind of the other way. Kyle started at just -2.7. He's the only guy who jetted to positive in November, and then has been on a downward trajectory. Is of the break shooting so improved recently. I was stunned when I saw this. So we go back up and say what's going on. Well, his offense is in the 54th percentile, about average, which is great. And his defense is in the 3rd percentile. Now, young guys all struggle here, but these are pretty significant struggles for Collier, George, Filipowski, and Sensabaugh. And again, I'll say it again, this is where some historical data and juxtaposition to other players who are at this level of depth would be nice, and I don't have it. Filipowski is in the 91st percentile defensive rebounding, which is great with his size and strength. He's in the 7th percentile for free throw shooting. His three-point shooting up at 34.4% is in the 43rd percentile and is really vastly improved. That's, this does take trends of kind of where he is shooting. His shot map does not have anything above the break yet as being a real positive. But you are seeing him improve. We can see it day to day. It's incredible effort on his part and pretty great. 91% of his threes are assisted, as you'd expect. 63% of his rim shots are assisted, and he shoots 65% at the rim, which is actually pretty good. Both those numbers show some creation and some good work there. So we have to. Time will tell again on some of this stuff. And then finally, Cody Williams, and this is obviously he's had just a feckless season. He's in the 1st percentile offensively, 4th percentile defensively, 1st percentile of effective plus minus. I think he's about the 4th worst player in the NBA so far this year, according to these numbers. True shooting percentage is in the 2nd percentile, 2-point shooting is in the 3rd percentile. And obviously, until he gains weight and is stronger, it's going to be hard to have much projection on him. The lowest overall plus minus is Maxwell Lewis, then Ariel, who I don't know, plays for the Knicks, then Cody Williams. Then Jamar Boyer, Liam Robbins, James Wiseman before he got hurt, Adam Bona, Ryan Rupar, Justin Minaya, Alex Len, Kendall Brown, Isaac Jones. These are not great names to be surrounded by. That's a little cruel. So hopefully that we see some signs there of that turning around. The worst shooters in the league this year are Elfrid Payton, PJ Dozier, Killian Hayes, Salon, the rookie for Charlotte, Justin Minaya, Alex Sarr, who we'll see tonight. He has no touch around the basket. It's crazy. No touch. Dashawn Nix, Johnny Davis, Reese Beckham, Mishik, Tillman, Keon Johnson, Keyshawn Johnson, George, who may or may not play tonight for Washington. So, a little bit, just kind of put that in scale. So that's your honest numbers breakdown of where your Utah Jazz rookies are. What's your thoughts? Share them in the chat room. Share them on our posts on the YouTube community. Let me know what you think. It's next. To get your thoughts, we'll react to those tomorrow. As well as the Jazz-Wizards game should be a unique one tonight. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of Locked On Jazz. Follow me on social at dlock09@gmail.com. That's dlock09@gmail, or you email me. But my social is dlock09 on everything. And if you would like to, please sign up for the newsletter at lockedondaily.com. Follow and subscribe to the program. 5-star reviews are much appreciated. We now send you the first ever national 24/7 NBA channel on YouTube, Locked On NBA. Check out Locked On NBA Game Night, every game, every night on Locked On NBA.